you've been certified through all your life experiences, which makes you the most effective, the most authentic, the most transparent, the most true teacher that we need on this planet.
Well, thank you. It's a lonely journey. I don't have a lot of support because, as you know, in the entertainment business, it's people would prefer I don't talk about trauma prevention and, you know, the darker side of things. But my thought is that if you prepare people accordingly, you know, it's just like going into the dojo and somebody starts with a white belt and you mentor them, you're their sensei, and eventually they become a black belt, and then there's teaching students too, right? So I think it's our privilege and it's our obligation to do better for everybody.
Welcome to Season 4 of Fifi Uncensored podcast with my guest, Marie P. Anderson, who is a modeling industry expert and a personal safety advocate for talent in the entertainment and fashion industry. Marie is a dear old friend of mine from my fashion editorial days, and she and I sit down and talk about the health and mental wellness of our industry and how we collectively need to do better. So join us for this week's episode. Grab that coffee, grab that cannoli, because here we go. So listen, I want to say first off, the last time you and I did this together, I want to first off thank you, because you were one of my very first interviews that accepted my invitation when we launched the Fifi Uncensored podcast back in October 2021. And then we carried on that conversation into that winter, early winter 2022. And we haven't had the opportunity to do this since, but I've watched you and I've seen you grow your business, and I've seen you touching and expanding and diversifying in a way that really, I think, serves so many because of your brilliance and your heart and your knowledge. And so I want to start with talking about that, and then we're going to lead into talking about like mental health and what have you.
Okay,
can we do that?
Sure.
Okay,
I'm here. I'm yours.
Okay, well,
as usual.
let's talk about your business and how things have evolved since we last spoke.
Everything to me is a big blur as far as time. It's like, you know, on Facebook, how it goes, memories, 5 years ago. Yeah. And I'm like, 5 years ago, man, that feels like 25 years ago. I don't know if it's because so much of my life is intense on a day-to-day basis or what, but I'm trying to remember what's happened since we spoke last. And I'm sorry, I can't remember everything.
It's okay. No, I think you've just expanded. What it seems like is you have a really solid group of people that you're representing who
Yes.
are doing really great things in an industry that's very challenged and very much shifted since we first began. And you began like almost a decade before I began, meaning not because of age difference, but because you had. And it's shifted. It's a digital world. I mean, it's like the film and television world. This is completely a shut down world right now, and all because of what's happening technologically and the difference between those that have versus those that don't have. And
there's more of us than there are of them.
Way more. Way more. That's why they call them the 1%ers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So how has that been navigating for your core group of people that you've brought into your fold as the mama bear that you are?
Well, what I find fascinating because I'm talking to you who knew me 40 years ago and you knew the business 40 years ago, you'll understand when I say, for me as a person, as an agent evolving, I'm very proud of myself and my ability to pivot. When I look at the people that I represent, it's fascinating. I only have 8. And that's intentional because those 8 keep me busy. For example, I have Masayo, who's almost 70 and Japanese.
She's gorgeous. She's ridiculously.
That would not have even happened 10 years ago. So that's Masayo. Then I've got Gabe, who's 6'4", 250-pound, former Dolphin football player. The guy is like a wall.
Yeah, of course.
10 years ago, I would have never represented him. I have Takayo, who's a teen Amerasian. He's half Korean, half Caucasian, the son of my former model, Melissa Song. A teen Amerasian boy, that wouldn't have been in my lane.
And wouldn't have been in the lane of any advertising or any campaign.
Precisely. So for me as an agent, I'm responding to what the industry is yearning for. And so as an agent, we're like little fetch dogs. We go out and give the client what they need. What is the trend? Where are we going now? I just signed a teenager who's an amazing dancer. Her name is Say. Her mom happens to be Makai, an agent, friend of mine. And what better compliment than another agent sending you their teen child. But anyway, with Say, she has these really long dreads with these, I don't know if they're ribbons, whatever they're called, they're pulled through her dreads, and she's got a nose ring. And just this morning, she got this really cool dragon tattoo on her wrist. Now, even 5 years ago, if somebody would have said, "Oh, Marie, I just got this really cool dragon," a girl, let's clarify, would have said, "Oh, I just got this really cool dragon tattoo that represents my childhood," I would have gone, "Whoa!" But now it's like anything goes, any shape, any size, any skin color. As we know, it's just a drastic makeover. Our industry has had a massive makeover. So as far as my management is concerned, the majority of the people that I manage aren't people that I would have managed 5, 10 years, for sure, 43 years ago.
Sure not.
So that's a drastic change. Boss Babe Models, which is my coaching company, it's kind of hard to separate Boss Babe Models from Marie P. Anderson. I'm one and the same. But as far as Boss Babe Models is concerned, what is so much fun with all my one-on-one coaching sessions that I do, it's everything from like a mom of a 6-year-old gymnast to all the way up to a woman who's literally an athlete in her 70s. And I have guidance for everything in between.
Of course you do.
So,
because you can.
So that, I mean, again, it's more like every time I step into a chat, I have to remind myself, we're in 2023. The past is behind us. Where are we now? What kind of goodness can I empower these people with? And yet at the same time, talk about mental health and talk about some of the darker sides of the business, but yet try to usher them into a safe endeavor that's lots of fun.
Yeah, and the cool thing about your ability to coach and guide based upon your perspective, your history, your expertise, as well as your own life personal experiences, is why I feel these individuals couldn't be more fortunate, whether you're just simply coaching them or they become people that you represent. Because first off, it's like anything in life, having the sensei, the guru, the whomever who you can lean into and be coached by. One of my takeaways over the last 3+ years is A, we don't do it alone.
No.
B, all successful people have coaches. All athletes have coaches. I don't know where in life that we have been taught that once you graduate from high school, if you even graduate, or you go on to university, why all of a sudden the teaching and expanding and growing stops? Unless you're curious by nature, no, stop. That's not the way it should be. That's not the way we should think it is. I certainly know I've been in an industry with a lot of that limited belief, and I've had to like get the barnacles off the boat because that's not who I've ever been.
Right.
And nor do I want to be, riding the waves with people like that, which is part of why I said what I said in my post yesterday. It's like, that's not happening anymore. No room for that. So yeah, because one's accepted way too much shit. One's we both have seen too much shit, and it's just like, no. When you bring value to the table with intention and purpose and heart and experience, that's what you want mirroring back at you.
Absolutely.
And you get to also be giddy about how you are serving others, because you can't take, you got to be a giver. You got to be a giver of life. There's the takers, go screw yourselves. I want, again, it's just, to me, it's just a riddle of narcissism and bullshit that just is like, we're unfortunately fueling so much narcissism in our world today that you really have to like be willing to dig deeper to get to the root of the truth, so you can like tunnel your way through with those core beliefs and those core human beings and like-minded tribe. So I think that what you're doing, which I really align with, by the way, what you're doing is sensational. And I'm so grateful for your pivots and your journeys, because it would be a loss to the industry as it expands and grows not to have somebody like you who are able to incite and guide human beings, no matter who they are and how old they are or what they're doing.
Well, thank you. It's
You're
definitely
welcome.
a calling. It's not like I have a choice in the matter.
You've been certified through all your life experiences, which makes you the most effective, the most authentic, the most transparent, the most true teacher that we need on this planet.
Well, thank you. It's a lonely journey. I don't have a lot of support because, as you know, in the entertainment business, it's people would prefer I don't talk about trauma prevention and the darker side of things. But my thought is that if you prepare people accordingly, it's just like going into the dojo and somebody starts with a white belt and you mentor them, you're their sensei, and eventually they become a black belt, and then there's teaching students too, right? So I think it's our privilege and it's our obligation to do better for everybody.
Well, 100%. And it's interesting that you say that, because yeah, you're right. The industry, whether it's the fashion print, the commercial, the film and television, now streaming, that's created a borderless world, which is great, but who's winning at that? Just a few.
That 1%.
The 1%. Yeah. And it's interesting because, and I think this is part of like, because I was having this other journey leading up to this, and this is not my first strike that I've been through, because I existed through the 2008.
Mhm.
The difference is, I've told this story a couple of times. Back in 2008, I was on a show called Cold Case where I was with the lead actress. And I remember like being on our stage and going back to the craft service table, and a bunch of crew were standing there going, oh, great, we're going to have 2 weeks off when they strike. And I looked at them and I went, do you even pay attention to like your business? Like, do you really read what the business is? Not just show up and do lighting and cable and props.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be off for 2 weeks. I pray to God you have money in the bank for 3 to 6 months, because here's the deal. This industry is no longer a mom pie industry. This industry is international conglomerates who it's sexy to say you own a part of Hollywood. And furthermore, for all their gains worldwide, they need a loss to offset. So this is going to be their loss that they're welcoming and cheering on, because that's business. So they don't care how much you suffer. They don't care if you come back to work. They don't care, period. Well, these crew members looked at me like, how dare you? And I was like, I'm not trying to be right. I'm just trying to understand the science. And this is who I am. And that proved to be so. It was 100 days of striking. So that was over 3 months. We were lucky because of the show we were on that our producers, not our showrunners, but our producers were really integral about getting us back to work. And so I think we might have even been the first show back to Warner Brothers at the time. So we were really, really fortunate. Now, so my getting through this journey over basically an 8-month period really prepared me mentally to like overcome obstacles, right? So I knew the writing was on the wall. I knew the writers were going to strike. I knew most likely the actors were going to strike. It was just, bound to be, because of what's going on in the streaming world and how very different things are 15 years later. So yes, still international conglomerates, but now tech companies have taken over. And again, these are multiple stream income businesses, and they need to offset their gains all over the world. And frankly, now, not only do they accept the loss to say that it's sexy to own Hollywood, but also now, because it's become a borderless streaming world, they don't need the US. They can go to Turkey, they can go to India, they can go to South Korea, they can go anywhere in the world. If you look at your Netflix productions, you have no idea where that content is being created. It could be in Morocco where people get paid
nothing. Yeah.
Dirt.
Yeah.
And they want it that way. And I know this is not a popular statement. So when I'm observing dialogue on social media, and I'm not saying that they're not right for striking, but what the cause and effect, like the rock in the water is so you've got these two unions who are striking, but you've got a huge community of other people who are being affected also by this ban. And again, I'm not saying that that's wrong, but what's happening is they're not getting seen, heard, or helped. They will, in most cases, many will lose their health insurance. Many, if they had a savings, will
depleted
and drained. Lucky if they can stay in their apartments or pay their mortgages.
Yeah. And
nobody's talking about it. And not only is nobody talking about it, but then there's all the vendors who support the industry who are being affected. So it's a real ripple effect.
Yeah.
And what I don't understand about human nature is how everything we do and say has a ripple effect, no matter what. It's called the law of physics, the law of nature, the law of attraction, the law of action. It's like how people don't think this way. And I've studied and practiced this throughout as far back as I can recall, which is why you sometimes go, well, if you know those things, how did you end up in these situations? Well, because, it's just more information, I guess, to teach. because I can only look at it as a gift versus a negative at this juncture, you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Amen
more
to that.
offer, more to offer, because we both understand. But to your point, that what I just said is not a popular conversation. And I'm not trying to, again, it was almost like COVID. When COVID came about and the country shut down, and they also said it will be 14 days, I went, no, motherfuckers, it's not gonna be 14 days. It's gonna be a minimum of 2 years. This is science. This is a world pandemic. What rock do you live under? I mean,
it's embarrassing, isn't it?
Well, you know what?
That we're, you know what the truth is? And then the propaganda.
Right. And it's kind of like, it's almost like going
wasn't serving them.
Say that again.
The truth was not serving them, the politicians.
Oh no, but it wasn't also serving a lot of people. Meaning, you know, people are going to live in their own denial. We both know this. People are going to live in their own illusion. I mean, the truth is, this is all one big illusion anyhow. It's just how you venture through it for what it's worth. None of us in the end really fucking matter because we're all going to be forgotten. So you better, like, you know, make your impact in a way that makes people feel good, because the rest of it, you can't fucking take with you. I don't care how many billions, I don't care how many planes, I don't care how much real estate. If you're not making a positive impact and leaving people feel a total positive legacy. Yeah. So, you know, and that leans into mental health. And as we both know, you mean, you've seen a lot through the industry over many, many years, but these last 3+ years have like exacerbated that. And most people, consciously or not, have not recovered. Like, if they could be going through life going, no, I'm good, but they're really not.
Autopilot.
And I think it got worse towards the end of the 3 years than even at the beginning. Is my observation.
Well, I can tell you, just being an agent, working with a lot of teams that I coach and have chats with or whatever, it's amazing how teens are kind of like my lane for the most part. How many of them are so depressed. Like, there's just a really high percentage. I mean, kids were depressed before COVID, but now it's been exacerbated as a result of COVID. And so many of them are just really lost getting out of high school, not knowing, like, what do I do with my life? And they haven't been socialized. There were a couple of years there that they were isolated. You know what I mean? And then you add on top of it inflation and bad weather and
and fentanyl.
And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I'm sorry.
No. You and I describe you and I as idealist realists. We want to see the good in things, and we do see the good in things, but we're also truth tellers, and want to like it or not. But that's why I've always loved you, and I think that even more today, even though we resonated back then, as we know we did, but I think we serve each other in a very more validating way today than even back then. Because actually back then, strangely, we weren't considered equals for what it's worth. I mean, we weren't. I don't mean like we weren't, but, you know, categorically, we tend to do things in position with, and you and I weren't consciously doing that. That was just the structure of our industry. Does that make sense?
I hear what you're saying, but to me, you're a peer, whether I met you that day or here we are decades later.
I thought
we're all part of the same team.
No, I always thought of you as a peer as well. I mean, I don't think we would have aligned in special, certain private ways if that weren't the case. But I'm saying that, and it's an interesting observation that I think also in our industry, and I see it certainly in film and television, the two-class system. What? I mean, I know that was created a long time ago, but man, talk about how people lean into that. Categorically, like, you're on that side of the tracks versus we're on this side of the tracks. And it's like, did we not understand when we were doing this that it takes a community of artists to make this happen? You're not the only one standing on the red carpet. You're not the only one who, because you get to call action, could call action if all these other things weren't created and in place for you, whether you think in your brain you designed that or not, or ask for what you wanted, but then it got delivered. It got materialized into truth. And it dumbfounds me, and going back to narcissism and ego, like how, I don't know if it's that people didn't come up from the bottom to work their way up so they have an understanding and appreciation, or people are just that ingrained in themselves and their head is that deeply up their ass.
Yeah, I don't know, but as you were talking, I was thinking, she has a point, because I started reflecting about the narcissism of a lot of agents and how they treat people as a general rule. So I'm only bringing up agents because I'm one, and that's how we met, right? So that's why I'm putting that in context. But you're absolutely right. It's like, wait a minute. Most agents don't treat people like their peers. Most agents, as a general rule, there's a lot of really cool people out there, but as a general rule, agents somehow feel better than, more important than. Yeah. And for me, I'm quite the opposite. My thoughts were always, I am nothing without the model, without the hairdresser, the makeup artist, the wardrobe stylist, the photographer, even the location. Like it's a community. And if we don't rally together, then none of us succeed.
Correct.
So so I'm going to go back to your point and say, I agree with you.
Well, I'd like to say thank you, but I also want to say that what's so interesting about all of this industry is it's not objective, it's subjective.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And even that becomes an extremely toxic experience.
Thank you.
Because we're not being, so let's go back to us being little girls for a minute. And let's say it was a bliss versus dysfunctional or whatever, right? Because it took a lot of strength for the two of us to forge forward amongst all the things we witnessed, right? And experience. So you take these two little beings, these souls with a lot of light, a lot of purpose, a lot of heart. And you say to these two little girls, no different than how you coach young kids, or I have in the past, and even still periodically, say to them, you find your passion and you find your purpose and you go out there and be your best version of yourself. And you'll align with all the right things and all the right people, and you'll go change the world and make a difference. And then you get into these industries, and I'm not saying it's true in other industries. I just think that other industries have more structured set up for protection, for the check and balance. I could be wrong, but whether it's corporate mentality or what have you, it's not to say you can't be let go. It's not to say blah, 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 but or have bad experiences. But in our industry, people choose, I like that tiger's spot, so I'm going to lean into that. They may not bring anything to the table, but that's who I want to fuck. So I'm going to raise that person up. Versus this person over here who is so committed, so loyal, so talented, can solve so many problems, but will be looked right the fuck over because
Yeah.
I don't like the way her ass looks. And her ass isn't even the thing that I'm actually filming. She's behind the scenes. And
You're
it's just like, how has this been created? It's been created off of dysfunction, and people, in my humble opinion, and again, it's not a popular opinion, but I've been saying this now for several years, who are not self-developed.
Absolutely. Right on.
And it's a continuous journey your entire time on this planet. It doesn't end. It's a constant pulling back the curtain and checking out where you're at and what you're doing and what's working and what's not, and how you're making a positive contribution versus not. And I can tell you that my experience, as no matter how much success and awards and all the things that I've had the pleasure, the amount of unhealthy human beings I've been exposed to. When you're going in thinking you're going in to do this thing, this job, deliver, and yet you're riddled with all this other mishigash that you're just trying to swim through to get to do your job. And then
So
you
true.
wonder why you come out all screwed up because of somebody else's shit that they brought to the table that they didn't leave outside the door.
Do you remember Charlie Brown's friend Pigpen?
Of course.
Do you remember all that dust? That's what a lot of people remind me of, that toxic, you walk into their hemisphere and it's like, now I'm all covered in that crazy making kind of mentality. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I feel so much better not being inside of a traditional model booking agency. It's been 5 years now. It feels so much better being away from, because even internally, do you know every agency that I've either owned or run, every single agency, there was at least one person in the agency trying to sabotage me in my career. And I was running the place.
We talked about this the last time we spoke. And I relate to that because every time I'm aligned with a certain talent or I'm designing a project, the level of fear and insecurity that is circling around trying to take down who I am is mind-boggling.
Did we already talk about that analogy, crabs in a bucket?
We did talk about crabs in a bucket and trying to pull down the one crab trying to get out. Not because they thought they were better. They were just trying to expand.
Something. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, please.
No, all I was going to say is, I know it seems ridiculous to bring this up, but when I watch the TV show Billions,
I can't watch it.
I'm like, damn, those people are not only, I can't, what is it? Succession
too.
Yeah, I can't watch that. Billions, I'm doing better with, but I could never operate at that level. And yet I'll never have a castle in England and helicopter pads. Like, anyway, but to your point, like, you have to be able to vibrate at a certain level to be able to maintain that kind of a lifestyle of, I think it's borderline madness. Random question. Do you keep seeing a little thumbs up?
Yeah. I don't know why it's coming up. I just ignore it. I mean, good for everybody. I agree. Thumbs up. No, you're right. It is true crazy making, and dealing with people, whether we're recovered addicts or we've dealt with addicts, or we all know the kind of crazy making worlds that we've either come up through or been a part of or what have you. And it's interesting, I will not name names, but I will say that one of my recent experiences, with somebody who has been very well known in the industry, in front of the camera, who I was aligned with, completely believes that they're the king. This is Downton Abbey, and everybody else is on the bottom of the boat. And when they said it, I laughed. I laughed. I was like, good for you. Good for you, King. Good for you. And what's so interesting, and I also said this, and this is not a popular statement, but it's really interesting because of what's going on in the industry and how people don't feel valued and seen and heard. I want to go, you never were. You never will be. You are a disposable entity.
Yeah.
Wake up. This is what you've been a part of. Nobody gives a flying fuck if you can do a C curl and a period lip and all that shit. They don't care. They don't care that you're unemployed and you can't take care of your children and your mortgage. They never did.
Yeah.
You are not all that in a slice of bread. You're not. So stop being a victim and be a victor and figure out with your gifts what else you can do to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And when you are surrounded by narcissism and crazy making, which I did not feel when we were back in Chicago, I will tell you, based upon what you were describing, and I was flashing back to being an elite, or what was it, David and Dave? What was it?
David and Lee.
David and Lee.
Mm-hmm.
David and Lee, not so much because it was so much more boutique-ish.
Yeah.
Right? One-on-one.
Yeah.
But in Elite, not from you, but the energy, the other energy was like, who made you God?
That came from New York after we merged. We had been Stewart Talent.
Yeah.
And we were like, it was Jane, me, an on-camera agent, Robin. There was somebody who booked kids who I'm spacing, or did Robin do kids? Anyway, there was only like 6, 7 of us at Stewart Talent. And it was like, everything was real chill. Everybody just did their job. Everything was fine. Everything was lovely. But as soon as we merged, as soon as Jane Stewart merged with John Casablancas, it was bringing in that New York elite culture. That's what drastically changed the vibe and the energy inside the agency.
Oh yeah, I get that. I get that. And listen, every community has their sense of entitlement, no matter what entity you walk into. I don't know if characteristically they're born this way, or environmentally they're shaped this way. Or they just say, today, I'm going to act like an entitled bitch. Uh-huh. And that's the dress I'm going to put on. Uh-huh. Good for you. Like, that's, and I think the thing about you and me, and you talked about, watching a Succession or Billions, or it's even like I couldn't watch A Handmaid's Tale. That was like a whole other.
I was 15 minutes. I'm like, nope, can't do it.
I was 3 minutes, and I turned to Randy and I said, please turn this off. I cannot watch it. And I worked with Elizabeth Moss, and I could not. I was like, no goddamn way. I've already lived this life.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't need to hear this story again. No way. And here we are today, watching women's rights and women's health going completely backwards before the 70s. And anybody, and I know I'm jumping subjects right now, but I know anybody who's under a certain age who was born into these rights has no concept, unless they're really, I don't want to use the word politically, but they're really historically, civically evolved. And unfortunately, in the education world, civics isn't even taught. Yeah. If you're not representing like a certain culture in history, you're definitely not going to be covering this. And I have watched so many women under a certain age just assume that they're going to have a career, assume they're going to own a house, assume that they're going to have a huge bank account, assume they're going to be at the top of their, food chain. And I'm like, sweetheart, do you have any idea whose shoulders you're standing on?
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's really unbecoming. And the attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, and look at, me, I'm all for the sisterhood and I'm all for raising
Yeah.
But I think it's really important. And we were raised in a generation, and this is not about good versus bad or when or where. But we were raised in a generation that you knew the 2 and 3 generations before you, what they went through, good, bad, or otherwise, to get to who they became, to provide what they provide, whether they could or they couldn't, and what that plight was, because it was constantly told to you. And it didn't matter what culture, it didn't matter where in the country, it didn't matter the socioeconomics, it didn't matter the religion. It was just a common thread that connected us. And today it's such a me, that it's like, well, did you understand that there's no I in we?
Or in team.
Or in team. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, I think that when you're doing what you're doing, or I'm speaking the way I'm speaking, first off, it's because we're empaths.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because my photographer friend said to me the other day, right before he was going to photograph me, he's like, well, you're an empath, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I've watched you for 20 years in this industry, bring to the table the most extraordinary work.
Oh.
And be aligned with some of the biggest and best. And they see you walk in the door and they go, I want what she's got. And then they eat you up because you're the empath. Yeah. They don't have what you have. And I'm not sharing this again. This was, the fact that this was being said to me from an observer.
Right. Yeah.
Was powerful to hear, but not something I wasn't aware of. But I think what was interesting for me, Marie, and I think this is part of whether it's growing up or having a lot of these experiences, because it's not a statement of a woe me. No, it's a, and this can happen to you too, not you, but others. Like, there's some people who think, oh, I have such a blissful career and I'm with this person, or I'm with that person, or I'm with this award-winning show. And guess what? Where are you right now?
Yeah. It can go away in an instant. Yeah.
100%, like a flip of a switch. And if this time right now isn't proving that, I sadly don't know a better time. And I don't mean better, I mean just a real life awakening.